Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. Are you one of those lovely vegetarians or a vegan maybe who loves to sort of get involved with that lovely plant-based diet that we're being pushed left, right and centre? I wonder why that might be. Is it because they don't want you to know something about eating meat? Oh, hang on a minute. We're not supposed to eat meat, are we? All the farmers have been told you can't eat meat. We can't grow it. We're not allowed to have it because cows, apparently, they fart and it's ruining the planet. Well, maybe that isn't quite what we are led to believe. I've got a gentleman who's I'm going to talk to in a moment, Lewis Mitchell, who is a local filmmaker to me. He's only actually down the road. Should have got him in the studio. He runs a YouTube channel called Big Friendly Viking, which I'm intrigued by the title of that, and the link will be in the description. You can check it out. But Lewis has been doing, I don't know how long actually, I shall ask him, is a carnivore. And he absolutely 100% is into the carnivore diet. Lewis, welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard.
You animal eating beast, you.
That's me, Viking.
Fant- Fantastic. So, we were chatting a little bit before we started to record just so that we could frame this up. And I do know a few people who have absolutely got rid of all vegetables. Not only do they have what they call a balanced diet, they just have it balanced on meat alone. And I think you said to me, meat and eggs. So, we're going to find out the advantages of that. But before we get onto that, how long have you been doing that and why did you switch?
So I've done it since August of last year. So that's what about 6 months, something like that. It all began really. I tried many diets throughout my time, and there was always a case of they would work to a point, and then I'd hit a plateau, and then I wouldn't lose any more weight because it would be
Was
things
that was
like
that was that the object of the exercise, the diet, to lose weight, or was
yeah.
it health? Health.
Well, it was a number of things, which I will get onto. But the main thing was weight loss because I was a big lad. I was 22 and a half stone back in August.
Right.
I'm now 17 and a half, so I've lost five
Wow.
stone in 5 months.
That's
Um,
amazing.
I was amazed by how much I lost. But the thing is, what's interesting about it is they tell you not to lose too much weight too quickly because it's not good for the body. You get
Yeah.
loads of loose skin, etc. But with this diet particularly, it's not actually done that, and I'm gradually losing it, but it's a fast amount of weight loss. So I'm losing the weight, but it's mainly body fat that I'm losing. So I've remained at between 17 and a half and 18 stone for the last month and a half or so, but I'm still losing body fat. So after looking into it, there is actually a vast difference between losing weight and losing body fat. You can be at a heavy weight, but you can still lose the body fat so that you will remain, your core weight will remain at that plateau. So, for example, right now I'm 17 and a half, fluctuating by a couple of pounds. Especially when you wake up in the morning, you will see that you've maybe gained a couple of pounds for no reason, even if you fasted, but that's purely water weight, which your body naturally develops overnight anyway. So it all began about a year ago. I remember I was watching a video by Jordan Peterson and his daughter, Michaela Peterson, and they would talk about how it was a video on Joe Rogan where they were on just meat and greens for X amount of time. But he realized that he was actually allergic to a fair few vegetables, and they worked out that him and his daughter were actually allergic to sulfites. It was a genetic allergy that ran in the family. So they decided just to eat the meat and get rid of the greens and see what happened. And he basically he talked about what his results were. And I always thought, just meat. I mean, we're always told that too much meat, heart disease, arteries, it can't be right. That the professionals are telling us that we shouldn't
Yes.
eat too much meat. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna try that just for a month. I'm gonna do it and see what happens. So after about 1 week, I'd stop snoring, and I was a big guy, so naturally I snore. I just stopped snoring after about a week. I thought, oh, that's a bit weird. And I'm sleeping really well as well. I'm not getting up in the night. I'm sleeping all the way through. After 2 weeks, I would wake up in the morning completely alert. So I wasn't feeling groggy. I didn't need to wake up. I didn't need my coffee to down and get up. Um, so that was a miracle to me, to be honest, because I've had that problem for years. Then after a month, I checked my weight and I'd lost 1 stone. No, stone and a half, sorry. It was a stone and a half. And I thought, oh, okay. And I feel good. So
Mm.
then I started introducing eggs into it, and that made me feel even better. I started seeing my skin clearing up severely, and I've always had terrible skin throughout my whole life. It's genetic in my family. I've always
And
had
when you
cystic
say
acne.
terrible skin, what sort of spotty or
Cystic acne,
rough?
yeah.
Right, right.
Not just acne, like spots on your face, but it's cystic. So it'd be on your thighs, your back, down your chest, just everywhere, and on
Gosh.
my neck
And
especially. And
itchy?
yeah, just yeah, you're always aware of it being there, and you get
Mm,
self-conscious about it, and especially in high school, you think as a teenager it was a thing. Oh, spots. So as a teenager, it wasn't
yeah.
fun. And
No.
then I started following this guy on YouTube as an MD called Ken Berry. And I would recommend anyone who wants to try this diet. And I must say, I have to make a disclaimer. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not an expert. So I'm not telling anyone to do this. Don't listen
This,
to me. If you want to do it, look it up yourself, research it, and give it a go. So
yeah,
don't take
and
my word for it.
absolutely.
But
But you're
this
you're
guy called Ken
sharing
Berry.
your empirical experience, which is
Yeah,
it's
I'm
your
just going by
truth.
my results, what I've experienced.
Exactly.
So this guy called Ken Berry, he's done carnivore for about 5 or 6 years, and is an MD in America. And he debunks a lot about what we're told by the food pyramid. Now, the food pyramid that we know originates from 1992, I think, which was basically created by the USDA, which I can't remember what it stands for, but it's the American. I've got it here somewhere. It is the Department of Agriculture in America, which basically, in the base of their pyramid, tell you to eat wheat and oats. So Ken Berry talks about the dangers of carbohydrates and how he's had so many patients of his come to his and with these problems, weight problems, health problems, and he said, okay, cut out carbohydrates and do ketogenic diet. So just meat and greens, zero carbs, zero sugar. So they've done that and I've seen major improvement, but there might be still a couple of problems they're having. So he goes, okay, cut the greens out and just stick to meat. And this is serious conditions that are being reversed here. And
Mm, mm.
there are testimonies, you can look it up for yourself. There are testimonies of people who are epileptic and have not had a seizure in years since just eating meat. So they're seizure free, they're off their epilepsy meds. It's essentially been reversed. You've also got people that are diabetic type 2 and 1. Now, type 1 is supposed to be incurable. You're not supposed to be cured of diabetic type 1. It's gone.
That
They
is incredible.
they're no longer they go to the doctors and the doctors check their levels and go, we don't know what's happened here, but you're no longer diabetic. So the patients say, well, this is what I'm doing, I'm just eating meat. And the doctor says, oh no, you mustn't do that. And they're like, well, as you can see, evidently it's
Yes.
helped. So,
Yes.
but I don't now we've got to make this clear. You cannot blame doctors, dietitians and nutritionists for telling you shouldn't do that, because I'm not saying that they're lying to sell for the carbohydrate industry or the sugar industry or anything like that. I believe it comes down to being misinformed, and the information that they give to their patients is what they're trained to give.
Yes.
So after following the diet, I followed Ken Berry and followed his advice, and it's a case of eating fatty meat. So the fattier the meat, the better. Don't eat lean. That's all a marketing scheme to eat lean. Lean. If you're a bodybuilder or you're trying to get toned, I guess lean meat might help for you. But I have fatty meat, so I'll have steak, I'll have beef, mince, I'll have pork belly with eggs, and I also fast, but that's not intentional fasting. That is because I'm barely hungry. Because what happens is when you're eating carbohydrates, your body actually feeds off of glucose. So when you eat carbohydrates, your body stores fat for a rainy day, which in turn makes you hungry because you've got that proper carbohydrate hunger. And I'll tell you what, that first week of carnivore, you eat as much meat as you want because you get hungry. You get really hungry because you're craving these carbohydrates because they're addictive.
Mm.
And they're designed to be addictive, especially bread. Modern bread is full of sugar. It's designed for you to want more, more, more. So it keeps
It's funny you should say that because a couple of years ago, I watched. I can't remember the name of the chap, and he challenged people to on YouTube. He said, "Stop eating bread for a month and see how you feel." And it was January. I thought I'll give that a go
I
just
remember
for a
you
laugh.
put that video up, yeah.
Yeah, and I did it for a month, and I haven't looked back. I
Have
carry
you
on.
never eaten
So
bread since?
I have had bread. I've cooked my own bread from
Yeah, of
heritage
course, yeah.
wheats, but not regularly. I've rarely got bread. Occasionally, I'll have a sourdough bread,
Yeah.
which is fermented. But I won't buy regular bread. Certainly, don't buy commercial bread,
No.
especially the Chorley Wood processed bread. So it
Read the
is rare.
ingredients.
It is rare, and I lost. Julia said, "I think you're going to disappear down the plug hole if you carry on with this," because I did lose significant weight, which I'd never really done before, and I suddenly realised, blimey. So
So,
cutting out bread was definitely
yeah,
and commercial wheat and those sort of things is not good. So I'm with
yeah.
you there. So so it's interesting what you're saying about the diet because there's a number of questions, I suppose. One is when and how often do you eat, and the other one is that people will say is, oh, but isn't it too expensive?
Okay, so how often do I eat? It completely depends. At the moment, I work nights as a security guard, so I tend to I'll eat about, let's say, for argument's sake, midnight. I'll eat, but I'll have a big old bit of meat. So I'll either get 500 grams of minced beef, and I will fry that up, drain the fat into a bowl to drink. I drink the fat, but that's optional. Not a lot of people gag at that idea, understandably. And then I will salt it to season it, and then crack 2 or 3 eggs in, bit of cheese on top, on a plate, eat that, and I'm full for a good 10 to 12 hours. It just fills me up. Or I get a pack of little pork belly slices, like 5 or 6 from Aldi. I season them. I do cheat a bit. I use aromat, which does contain bits of carb in. It contains, but it's very minor. It
What is
contains onion and
aromat?
garlic. Nor aromat, so it's an alternative to salt. It's like a meat seasoning. It's a meat
Oh,
flavored
I see.
seasoning, which
Right.
I swear by. It's way better than salt, but I have that in moderation because it contains a bit of yeast. It contains garlic. It contains onions. So
It's probably not
naturally,
significant number
oh
of.
yeah, yeah. And the thing is, when I first started doing the diet, I was eating meat. Or I would have a steak for breakfast, and at lunchtime I'd have a load of pork. Then I'd have, maybe burgers or something, just naked burgers, no buns or anything, or meatballs, just meat all day. But then, as I was saying about your body feeding off glucose, you're always hungry. After it varies, but after about a month, you go into a full state of ketosis. So your body starts to feed off of ketones, which means your body's constantly burning fat and energy whilst you're eating meat. So whilst just eating as much as you want, meat wise, your energy levels, my energy levels now are more than I have ever had in my life, ever since I was a kid. Because what happens is when you eat a lot of carb, do you remember when you ate bread, you'd eat a big old baguette or something and you'd sit there like, oh, and you'd just be
Yeah.
tired all the time and brain
Yeah.
fog, you're not thinking clearly, you're not thinking sharply. That's all carbohydrates. That's
Right.
especially rice. Rice is marketed as being super healthy. Um, a couple of weeks ago, I cooked a meal for my partner and me. And I thought, you know what? I haven't had rice in months. I'm going to do this on rice. That wrote me off for about 4 days. I was
Really.
so tired and foggy for 4. I couldn't think
Mm.
straight. I couldn't think clearly. I wasn't sharp. Couldn't form sentences together properly. And I thought, right, so now I know rice and me don't get on. I used to eat that all the time. Once upon a
Yeah.
time,
And
it's chicken and rice all the time.
thing
So
is, people may well be watching this as they're sitting down to have a dinner, and they've just put themselves a plate of rice and meat, and they're
possibly,
going,
yeah.
ah.
The thing is, you've also got to remember a lot of people will look at this and think, oh, it's a fad diet. It's not sustainable. You can't just live on meat. But I now generally, on average, eat once a day. I'm up for 4 to 5 hours, maybe 6 hours. I eat a big old loads of meat and eggs, and then I am full until the next day. Um,
So the other question that I had in that two-part question was, how do you afford it? Because people will say, but meat's expensive.
well, of course it can be, but that depends where they're shopping. If you're shopping in supermarkets all the time, of course it's going to be expensive. Um, there's quite a taboo about the pricing of a butcher's, but if you order enough from a butcher's and get a meat pamper, that can last you a long time.
A
And
meat pamper. I like
yeah, like
that.
a meat pamper, hamper. You know what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. It's a
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
old,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big, just a big old box of meat where they do. I mean, my local butchers do. They do like the carnivore box. They do the lean box, the roast meat box. And you say, yeah, you can argue that it's expensive, but if you go to Aldi, which is mainly where I shop because it's cheap, again, once you get to a certain point where you're not eating as much,
Hmm.
The meal I make, which is minced beef with eggs, that costs me £3, £3 or £4, and then that again that fills me up till the next day. So I'm essentially spending £3 to £4 a day on food. But it
Yeah.
depends how
So,
you shop, and yeah, meat can be expensive,
well, you're
absolutely, but
not
just know
buying,
where to shop.
presumably. Yeah. I mean, you're not buying crisps. You're
No,
probably not buying fizzy drinks.
no,
You're not
the
buying
idea of fizzy
bread.
drinks disgusts me now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can't. I mean, somebody offered me a Coke, and I mean, I said no, but they said, and I said, I'll just have a sip of yours just to remind myself how awful it was. And the syrupy, it's like, I was just finding
Yeah,
it. And as you clean out your diet from all this sugary stuff, my goodness, you know, the nuances of the taste buds come back, and you go, oh, I can taste it everywhere,
yeah,
and of course,
yeah,
it
and
is
it's actually quite
everywhere.
revolting, isn't it? I mean, when you do carnivore, you'll get to a point where some rarely I'll have some vegetables. At Christmas, I thought it's Christmas dinner, I'm gonna have some vegetables with it, and they tasted beautiful, but they made me bloated as hell. Like especially sprouts and broccoli, that really bloated me out. But with you can say it's expensive, of course you can, but once you know how to be clever with it, again, the minced beef with the eggs, which is the cheap meal, and you drink the fat. If you can just get used to drinking the fat itself and replacing, don't use sunflower oil; it's extremely bad for you. Any
Yes.
oils, use lard or beef drippings. Lard's 50p from Tesco, or real butter, which I also use in my coffee. I cut milk out.
Yes, you said that to me before we started filming, and because you said you don't do milk,
Yeah,
and then you said I put butter in my coffee, and I went, what, butter in your coffee?
that's what everyone.
So yeah, I'm sure. So how much butter? Is it just a knob of butter, a little knob,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a
So
slice a little bit off?
basically, my skin cleared up like mad from the
Hmm.
carnivore diet, but it wasn't getting to the results I was expecting. So what I did was I think, okay, I know that me and dairy don't get on because I'm pretty sure I'm lactose intolerant too. So I thought I looked it up, other alternatives, and that guy Ken Berry that I mentioned, he did a video. What do I have in my coffee? And I saw him making his coffee and blending butter into it, and I thought, really? I mean, don't diss till you try. So I got a block of real butter from Aldi, salted, not Flora or any of that utterly buttery crap. Don't eat any of that. It's
Hmm.
not real food. But real butter and just a slice like a knob of butter into it. Have as much as you want, really. And it's actually called, it turns out, keto coffee, and there is a reason for that. But I put that in my coffee, and it creates a layer of buttery fat on top of it. And I
Hmm.
drank this and I thought, oh my God, that I'm never turning back. This coffee is beautiful. Now, the reason it's called keto butter is because instead of the dairy, well, technically butter is dairy, but it's not, what's the word? What's the word for when you pasteurized? It's not
Yeah.
pasteurized dairy. It's basically butter is just a layer of fat from the top of the raw milk to create and create into real butter. It keeps you in a constant state of ketosis because you're basically just drinking fat in your coffee. So that's why it's called keto coffee.
I see.
But that is again, that's speeding up and that's keeping my insulin levels and my weight loss at a
It's
perfect level.
interesting you say that you cut out milk altogether, and I completely agree that that drinking pasteurized milk, especially pasteurized and homogenized milk, the two things together are absolutely abhorrent. And 99% of the population are drinking that, and no, I'm not surprised people are lactose intolerant. But raw milk, I've been reading a lot of that and speaking to a few people who sell it as well as have written about it. And people exist or have existed on raw milk diets for years, nothing else but
Yeah,
raw milk. So, I imagine that. So my point there was just simply that some people who say they're lactose intolerant are actually intolerant to pasteurized milk because it's killed all the bacteria, and we need the bacteria is good. Good bacteria. I mean, there isn't really bad bacteria. They'll tell you that there is, but bacteria is either good or it's just irrelevant.
that's
And you'll get.
interesting. No, that's very valid. I've never really thought about it that way, and I'm not, I don't personally. I've always gone by the assumption that milk doesn't belong in the human body. Um, but I guess I mean the pasteurized milk. that you get
Yes.
in supermarkets. I don't think I've ever tried raw milk. I'm not sure. I wouldn't be able to say, but I'd be willing to try it
Well,
to see if there's any effects.
yeah, I would definitely give it. I mean, I would give it a try, and get it from a reputable source. Of course, it's not cheap. I get 12 liters sent to me from a. I can give you the names of places to go to, and
Right.
you obviously. I mean, the places that will sell. The thing about raw milk, just I mean, this is your interview, not mine. But the thing about raw milk is the dairies that sell it have to be as clean as possible, because you only want one case of somebody feeling ill as a result of it, and it's big national news. So
Yeah.
they make as a stringent effort to make sure that it's collected clean, because the only real thing that's going to hurt you, unless you are genuinely affected by the raw milk itself, which is quite rare in actual fact, is any contaminant that gets into the milk in the chain. But since the original times of Louis Pasteur and pasteurization, in which things were very sloppily
Yeah.
done, it's very stringent. And raw milk contains bacteria. Bacteria is our friend. Our gut's full of it. I mean, the whole
Meat.
body's full of it. And meat's
Meat,
full of it.
bacteria. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
And we
once you
need it.
and I think the problem is with that, especially when you clean something and dilute it to hell, especially with milk, it basically, especially if it's like semi-skimmed or skimmed, not full fat milk, it just becomes sugar. That's
It,
literally all it is.
I do not understand the idea that anyone is drinking skimmed or semi-skimmed milk.
No.
They shouldn't be. They should not be drinking pasteurized, because the thing was, oh, but we'll get fat. We'll get fat if we have full fat, because they say it's full fat. But this is the thing. I mean, it's the same with the carnivore diet. That's the
It's the
thing that people.
stigma. It is, and it is literally what we're told. Oh, eat low fat, eat low
Mm,
fat, eat high in fiber, low fat, high protein. Well, where does the protein and the fiber come from if the fat's taken out? This is what
mm.
people don't quite understand.
And
And the thing
our
is, as I've
ancestors, you can imagine our
yeah,
ancestors, they've killed an antelope or a big wild boar or something, gone, yeah, only eat the lean, only eat the
I'll
skims,
eat a bit of the rump to get rid of the fat. Yeah.
yeah, don't have the fat, for God's sake. It's like, they ate it. And
Anyone who says this, that says, "Oh, fat's bad for you," I just say, "Okay, here's a picture of me five months ago. This is me now, and this is me living off of fat and protein. I live off fatty meat, and look at these results. I used to have for years, like a few dark circles all around here, and I always just looked so just rotten. I just looked like
mm,
I was wasting away. And look, gone,
yeah,
all
gone.
gone. And that is literally, I've come to the conclusion now, if I eat carbs at all, I'm written off. And I truly, I don't want to go down a conspiracy rabbit hole or anything like that, but I do theorize against, only a theory, I'm not an expert, but I believe we are poisoning ourselves with carbohydrates and with sugar. You look at people eating cereal, and you look at the ingredients, and they advertise it as, oh, it's rich in B12, it's rich in fiber. It's like, is it? And you read the ingredients, you're like, if there's 90 ingredients in something, are we supposed to really put that in our body?
Mm.
90
Well,
ingredients.
Well, you see things like cereals and things like that. I mean, I've read about this for a while now, and we've manipulated, say, wheat, so that we get smaller plants rather than the taller plants that we once had. So it's easier to use a combine harvester to harvest it. The actual kernel is fatter, so there's more white for bread inside, which is and it's taken. They've already taken out loads of the nutrients in order to get this kernel to be this big. They've lost a lot of the goodness of the wheat. They're
Yeah.
spraying it with goodness knows what, which is not very healthy to keep away the pests. And then it's rolled, instead of stone ground, it's rolled in steel rollers, which gets rid of all the fibrous stuff, which is the bit that's actually beneficial to us.
Yeah.
Then they make the bread and they shove in all this other stuff to keep it fresh and what have you. So by the time you get to eat it, there's absolutely nothing in it that's doing you any good, and there's potentially a lot of stuff that's doing you bad.
Which is
And
literally what
that's
we just said about pasteurized milk. It's diluted and diluted and diluted to the point where there's nothing left of it. So you're
yes,
eating just something that is meaningless and not providing you anything. And when you eat that, your body craves more. Think about it this way. As Jordan Peterson said, why are so many people fat and stupid?
Yes,
What are
exactly.
they eating? Look what they're eating. They're eating French fries. They're eating potato. They're eating sandwiches. They're eating burgers. They're eating bread. Just carbs, 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 sugar, sugar, sugar. It's fat is not the devil. Fat is not the enemy, like we're being told. The food pyramid is just, quite frankly, a load of rubbish. It's a load of nonsense. Do not listen to what these, especially influencers. So many influencers on TikTok and social media say, "Oh, this new protein milk drink," and it's like, are you stupid? If you believe this, like, this isn't good for you. Stop drinking energy drinks. Stop drinking these protein shakes. It's not natural. We're not supposed to put it in our body. What is
Yeah.
supposed to go in our body is meat and cruciferous vegetables. That's it.
What is a? That's an interesting word. I've not heard that. What did you call it? Cruciferous.
Cruciferous.
Cruciferous. What does that
Yes.
mean?
So it's vegetables such as broccoli, leafy vegetables, broccoli, sprouts. Also nuts apparently are known, I think, are known as cruciferous.
Oh, right.
So it's a bit of a tongue twister. Cruciferous.
I
Um,
like it. I'm going to
yeah,
look that one up. The
Look up
I
cruciferous vegetables. I'm
start
no
using
expert.
that. No,
I'm not
no,
going to
but
pretend to know what I'm talking about with vegetables, but
cruciferous. I'm
um,
going to drop that into conversation here and there and see if anyone picks up on it. You know, oh yes, very so clever that Vobes. Um, so yeah, so you don't. I mean, apart from say at Christmas when you have a few sprouts that bloat you out,
potatoes.
generally,
I'd have some roast
pardon?
potatoes.
And roast potato. I mean, that. So I
It's
can see them.
Christmas.
Exactly. I can absolutely see the merit of a meat diet. And of course, we've been told all farmers and they're killing the planet. These cows, these
Yeah,
farting cows are killing the planet. I mean, the fact that ruminant animals have been roaming around for years and years and years, you know, generations and centuries and eons, and the planet is still here. It does seem that man is the one that's doing the trouble, an industrialized capitalist man, not the ruminant cows and what have you. So, what's your opinion on the policy that we're seeing being thrust at us to go to a plant based diet instead of a meat based diet?
oh, I think it's such a baseless bit of advice and such a baseless argument. I mean, I don't. I'm no expert, and I don't think there's any problem if you want to live on a vegan diet where your diet comes directly from the ground. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with that. I know that there are, in the blue zones, it's fit. I mean, people talk about blue zones, saying how they live purely off of from the ground, even though it's kind of been talked about now that they actually cook their vegetables in lard, so they cook them in fat. But the problem with a vegan diet is the concept of what a modern vegan diet is, and that is if you go to a supermarket and you see a vegan alternative to a burger, it's a vegan plant burger. It's made of soy, it's made of seitan, it's made of this, and this. Read the ingredients. There's about 60 to 90, maybe more ingredients in these vegan alternatives, and if you Google those ingredients and look at the side effects of those ingredients. Have you not noticed? I don't know about you, but I've met so many vegans that always complain on the hottest day about being cold. They're always,
Oh,
oh, it's
really?
so cold. I've been friends with loads of vegans, and a good few of them now, funnily enough, they're no longer vegan because they did it for ethical reasons, and now they've kind of thought, well, I don't really live in the luxury to be able to be fully ethically vegan. And now they eat meat and realize they're a lot warmer and more internally content with eating red fatty meat than they are eating a vegan alternative shepherd's pie from Waitrose or Tesco or whatever. I understand the ethics. I understand why people do veganism for ethical reasons because of animal rights, etc. That's not my hill to die on and to argue with them the morality of what it is, if it's okay to eat animals or not. All I can argue is I've seen my results. I've tried vegetarian diets before. They didn't work for me personally. This is the only diet I've ever done where I feel amazing. I'm looking way better. It's at a point I'll be walking somewhere and I'll look in my reflection or in a mirror or in a window and I'll go, bloody hell, look at me. Where have I gone? I've lost all this weight. I feel amazing. My skin's doing really well. I'm mentally, my anxiety has decreased by at least 70%. I'm not as anxious as I used to be. I could, when I fast, if I do a prolonged fast, which I do once or twice a month, I do like a 48 hour fast. because it's good to reset your gut. It's good for you to do it. It's not going to kill you. You're not going to starve from it. I'll have maybe 6 eggs, 6 or 8 eggs boiled after, and then I again fall for another 12 hours. It's the best source of protein you can get in an egg. 42% of that egg can become human tissue. So
Wow.
the vegan diet, if someone wants to do it and they think they're doing the right thing, go for it. But I
Yes, I
don't
mean,
think it's going to be great for your body in the long run.
yes, you're not advocating. I mean, you're advocating for a carnivore diet. So, and it's interesting you mentioned the ethics. I mean, I'm very much for eating meat, but I would like to see the end to the highly industrialized farming of meat
In
because,
factory farming.
yeah, the factory
Yeah.
farming and some of this. I mean, clearly, the more that you could persuade smaller farms to have meat and that was grass fed, properly looked after.
The best kind of cow is a grass fed cow. Yeah.
Exactly. And then slaughtered as close to the premises as possible so there's no fear.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand is once the animal's in fear and it's slaughtered, that fear gets into the meat. So that's not as helpful as if you can afford to have cows that have been less industrialized
Yes. Yeah.
through the process. And they'll have a better life, of course. But it must be quite tricky for I mean, we were thinking of and we're still thinking of getting some land and having some pigs, and we would
Oh,
Julia and
that's a
I were.
dream. That's a dream. I'd love to have a farm one day. Yeah.
It's just that fact of going, hello, lovely little pig. You're going to be so lovely,
The thing
lovely.
is, you give them a good life, though. This is the thing.
Exactly.
It's what I refer to personally. I don't know the correct term. I refer to it as ethical farming.
Yes.
So you give them the best life, and when it is that time for them to be the sacrifice to feed you, you can slaughter them in a humane way. I saw a video on it once of a farmer who shows the alternative, because when you look at factory farming or generic farming, when a cow's being led to their doom, to their final, their final breath, there is, as you said, this huge element of fear because they've seen the other cows being led there and they know what's happening. They're not
Mm.
stupid. Cows are
No.
extremely intelligent, and pigs. They're probably the most intelligent creature on the planet. But there is a way of taking them away on the field, being with them, and pop in a very ethical,
well,
quick
that's it.
way.
I mean, I understand that something is excreted when they're in fear, which is going to affect the tissue,
Yeah.
which then, of course, humans are eating, which in big industrial food, which unfortunately gets into, of course, into the supermarkets and all
Yeah,
of
of
that.
course. This is why, if I think the most ideal way of doing it, if you're able to, is your local butcher, because a million reasons really, but one, it's supporting your local butcher, it's keeping the farm alive, it's keeping the farmer going, and you're not funding the supermarkets. I understand not everyone's in the position to do that.
No.
So I wouldn't say you're wrong for.
Well, what I mean, one of the problems is that there's just not enough local butchers around, and
True.
people, they've got to either go and find a farm shop or find a local butcher. Whereas, the convenience store is just round the corner with
Yeah.
some of this rather
It's convenient.
overly red, somewhat dubious looking. Because I think most people forget what meat looks like raw.
Yeah.
They've got this image of what the supermarkets present, this very red, bright, pinky sort of stuff, which may or may not reflect what true, genuine, well-cut meat from a butcher would look like.
Yeah. And also,
So,
when you go to a butcher, ask any butcher. A lot of them will tell you. When meat becomes, especially beef, when it becomes oxidated, so it goes grey, and people see it, go, "Oh no, it's gone off, throw it away." I've had a few butchers tell me for things like beef, it is actually a lot better to eat it once it's oxidated. They did explain the science behind it. Apparently, it really enhances the flavour because it's sort of at its peak where it's the best time to cook it. So,
right.
especially minced beef, if it gets oxidated, it's mainly looking like it's browned off. Cook it and eat it then because it enhances the flavour. I've done it a couple of times with steak, and I will say it makes it a lot juicier and a lot. Well, it's not blood, is it? But
No.
lack of a better phrase, it's bloodier, so it's juicy.
So here's a question then. Do you eat your, let's say you've got a nice juicy steak in front of you. Do you have it, what kind of, do you have it rare? Do you have
Bloody
it
as hell, yeah.
bloody as hell?
I do. It depends on the size. I mean, at Aldi, or if anywhere really, if you get a good old like a 32 ounce, like big old rump, you need to cook it longer because you need to make sure that the heat's getting through, and you want it to get to your. So that I would do a good like 5-6 minutes aside, but that's because it's so big. But as a generic steak, to go by generic rules of cooking a steak, I'd do it about 2.5 minutes aside, so it's lovely and juicy and red. And then obviously when you whack a couple of eggs on top of it, the yolk blends in with the juice. And then again, any meat I cook, the fat left in the pan, I put it into a mug or into a bowl. And once I've eaten the meat, I drink it in pure Viking style, pure carnivore style, true carnivore. Drink that fat and it will fill you up and you'll feel amazing. Your energy levels spike up. Never get rid of fat. There's no reason to ever get rid of it. Even if you don't want to drink it, store it, keep it in the fridge, cook your next a batch of meat with that fat, with that dried fat.
And I guess you can make gravy out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can use the fat to make gravy. You can make nice stock out of it, especially if you then use that fat with bones and drain all the bone marrow from the bones. That makes a nice broth, a nice drink. Even if you're fasting, if you wanted to stay off food for 24 hours or so, just have a mug of
Bit of bone broth
of the fat. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had a chicken last night, a whole chicken.
Oh,
I
nice.
didn't eat all of it. We still got the other half to go. And yeah, Julia was saying, "Oh, we'll boil up the carcass and make some soup out of it, or gravy,
Oh,
or
nice,
something." Yeah, which
even
is
if it's just a drink, because
yeah,
it'll fill you up. Have it for breakfast when you get a bit peckish in the morning. Drink the broth, and you'll see you're fine all day. Because again, when you're eating just meat, the problem is people are hyper tired from eating carbs and sugar and bad food because it makes their insulin levels spike. So when your
yes,
insulin levels are high, it makes you so tired. You get heart palpitations. You're foggy. When you're just eating meat and you're in ketosis, your insulin level is exactly where it needs to be, right at that midpoint. So that's how you burn fat. The reason you can't lose weight when you're trying to diet, especially if you're doing a vegetarian diet and living off potatoes a lot, your insulin level's still too high. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's all about controlling your insulin in order to lose weight. With the carnivore diet, yeah, it controls your insulin, but also I've noticed, as I've said, the effects of the skin improvement and the sleep improvement and just the general mental state improvement. I don't know if that's just insulin or the fact I'm eating just meat and eggs, but the way I see it, and a lot of people say, oh, I don't trust that diet, or you're wrong. I think, well, I mean, let's look at my results, and I'm happy. I don't
exactly.
care. I know it's working for me, so I'm just going to carry on.
And is there any meat that you don't eat?
I don't really eat chicken because I mean I love chicken wings. I like chicken with the skin on. I've never liked chicken thighs. I've never liked the taste of them. I do like chicken breast. This is a bit of a cheat meal I have. I do love like KFC or Popeyes because and I know it has got carbs. It's got breadcrumbs, but even eating that, it hasn't badly affected me and it hasn't put weight on me.
Right.
Because another thing with I'm not a big fan of chicken, but another thing is salt. There is this huge myth and scare about salt, which came in. I want to say the 70s is when you probably remember more than me. No disrespect. You probably remember more than me the salt scare. I think it was the 70s
Yes.
when they were saying, don't eat too much salt, it's bad for your arteries. There's
Mm.
actually no evidence that
No, salt,
bad for you.
especially Celtic sea salt or
Yeah,
Himalayan salt, because I think there's something like 77 minerals in Himalayan, and there's something like
yes,
86 different minerals in Celtic sea salt. So
yeah,
we eat both of that. And Barbara Neal, is it Neal or O'Neill? Can't remember her surname.
not sure.
Australian lady who's not allowed back in her country because she's been giving this misinformation about how healthy you can be. And she says that if you take a pinch of Celtic sea salt and some clean water, filtered or whatever, and you drink that, the salt gets the water into the system as opposed to just flushing through.
Yes,
And loads of people are what's the condition when they haven't got enough? Dehydrated.
yeah,
Loads of people are dehydrated. They're drinking water or they're drinking tea and coffee, but it's just going through because it's the salt that
yeah.
actually gets it in. And salt is very, very good for you. We don't eat,
Basically,
we
when you
don't.
do that, it filters the water into your system because
Yeah,
let's say the best analogy to use is you've got a tube. If you do have dehydration and cellulite, not cellulite. What's the word? Ah, the things that make you thirsty. I can't remember the electrolytes.
electrolytes. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you've got an electrolyte problem. So you've got a tube. When you're just drinking the water, it's just going straight down the tube. If you've got the salt in the water, it's going down and then spreading into the body to hydrate you.
yes,
And ever since I cut out spices and stuff. Although, as I said, I do sometimes have aromat. But season your meat with just salt, and again, suddenly you realise you're not drinking as much water. And I
Mm.
was getting worried, thinking, why aren't I drinking as much water? I was like, I used to drink a good 2 litres of water a day, nothing but water after drinking my coffee in the morning. Now I don't need to drink as much because I'm having more salt. And that's really remarkable because, again,
Yes.
my whole life, everything, especially with salt, is bad for you. My whole life, I've been lied to, but not necessarily intentionally. It's not my parents' fault. That's the diet that I had growing up because they weren't. They were just doing what they were told from when their parents, and it goes on. But
Yes.
I think people are starting to wake up now to the fact that carbohydrates and sugar are indeed poisoning us and killing us all slowly. All you have to do is look at the American population and look at people in America. And the way I see it, ever since 2020 and a certain medical intervention,
Mm.
which we won't talk too much about, I've basically decided whatever the government tell me is good for me, I'm not going to do. And what they tell me is bad for me, I'm going to do it. And it's
Yes.
the first time I'm actually seeing positive results in my body and in my mind, which kind of says something, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and I think that is the very best advice that anyone can take. Is whatever the government tells you to do, do the reverse. Um, it would seem to me. It's interesting, just to finish on the salt thing, I think it's very interesting that if you go back to the 1700s, the 18th century, effectively, we had a lot of coal burning and there was a lot of smog in the big cities and things, and people for their health were told to go down to the seaside. Back in those days there wasn't so much pollutants in the sea,
Of course.
and they were advised to take a pint of seawater, which of course is salt water, to help them with their nerves,
Yeah.
and they may or may not know quite what was happening back then, but that is, of course, sound. I wouldn't drink out of the sea now because there's so much pollution in it.
I wouldn't
But
even swim in the sea now, let
well,
alone
that's
drink it.
exactly. But the water, what they were effectively doing is exactly as you've just described, the salt in the system, and was probably getting their electrolytes all sort of fired up and correcting
Interesting.
the
I never
system.
knew that. I never knew
Yeah.
that. A bit of advice they gave.
Yeah, and it's these old bits of advice from a couple of hundred years ago, before the Industrial Revolution came around, where there were, once you started capitalists became involved. There's incentives for you to buy more pap because somebody somewhere is making a lot more money, and the
That wasn't
set
meant to
behind you
happen.
is just the set has
That's
just
me.
collapsed.
Map's just falling down.
Oh, bless you. So yeah, so sometimes some of these old things that we were told, oh no, that's not a good idea. As you say, the salt scare is actually something that is definitely worth doing.
Well, there seems to be this recurring pattern throughout history, isn't it? That there's always a scare telling us not to do something,
Mm,
and we don't do it, and then we end up getting ill and dying anyway. So,
exactly.
or then they say, you do this, you must do it, so we do it, and then we get ill and die anyway. So it's like, well, do we need to follow the advice of what they're telling us now? Do we need to actually listen to this is good for your body, this is bad for your body? Because when you do the opposite, you seem to see positive results.
Yes. And as you said, I mean, the thing that I suppose you've kind of said it with looking at the population, but it does seem that here we are in the 21st century, supposedly the most sophisticated, most cultivated that we've ever been. We have the most amount of knowledge. We've got the internet, we've got digital this. And yet you look around and we seem to be the most unhealthy bunch of people there ever was. And yet during the war, when there was a shortage of food, people were thinner, they were more healthier. They managed to survive and duck and dive the bombs during that period. And yet here we are with everything at our fingertips, literally on the computer. You can have it delivered to your door. And yet it seems that we're the most ill we've ever been. People dropping down dead for various reasons that we needn't talk about.
It's a mystery. I guess we'll never know.
Well, we'll never know. Maybe not. But anyway, so carnivore diet. There's no food other than chicken, sausages, beef
You're not
burgers.
supposed to eat sausages because, well, supermarket sausages because, again, you look at the ingredients: yeast extracts, sulfites. They've got stabilizers, so you're not supposed to. I won't
Mm.
lie. I am partial to a supermarket sausage. I will not lie. But mainly, I love the sausages from the butchers. Are way more pure. They're like more 90% pork. The best advice I can give if you want to have sausages of your carnivore diet is read the different types that you find on the shelves, see which has the most pork in. For example, if you look at Richmond's, I think they're only like 42% pork, whereas if you look at certain other ones, they're 70 or 80% pork, or
Yeah.
sometimes 90, it depends. But I eat sausages, but again, they've not affected the results, which is quite
Right.
remarkable as well.
So
Um,
butchers, I mean, butchers would be butchers and farm shops that actually farm shops that have their own butchery. We'd go to Charlie's Farm Shop, which is in Bury, fairly close here, and where I am. It's a 7 mile journey,
yeah,
but they have a butchery on site in the farm shop. So you can ask them, what's in the sausage, and if you can ask the butcher and he says, well, it's 90% pork and a few breadcrumbs,
yeah.
you're laughing, aren't you?
But yeah, and your butcher's very unlikely to lie to your butchers. You've got to remember butchers are as passionate as farmers,
Yes.
so they're just. Why would a butcher lie about the meat? Whereas supermarkets, yeah, they're just going to say just buy it. Don't read the ingredients, just buy it. But yeah, other than that, it's just chicken. I don't mind chicken, but it's just I've kind of gone off it. I don't
Is
know
it
why.
what? Because it's anemic to you, or it's just not red meat? You prefer red
I
meat?
definitely prefer red. I mean, mainly my diet is beef and pork. Mainly beef and pork. I indulge in organs. I try to eat organs once a week, so either liver or kidney, because you do need your organ fix with the carnivore diet purely because of all the vitamins that come in there. However, there is now this supplement which has been released. I can't remember the name of the company, but I'm sure if someone Googled organ meat supplements, they'll be able to find these pills by this carnivore company, these pro carnivore guys that have made these pills with ground down uh, liver, hearts, kidneys, all put into a pill. I think you take one or two of those a day. I haven't tried them myself, but I'm gonna, and when I do, I'm gonna put a video on my YouTube channel about it to see.
Have you ever ate tripe?
I haven't, no. But I know that my girlfriend's dog loves tripe, and just seeing it and the smell of it puts me off. But
Yeah.
it is sort of jellified for dogs, so I don't know. I'm not quite sure about tripe, but I do love liver. I love
Right.
liver.
Oh,
I
do
love
you?
kidney.
Yeah. See, when I was a kid, growing up in the 70s, well, 60s and 70s, we had liver. Liver and bacon was a
Mm.
meal that we often would have, and it was all right. I think what put me off was when I learnt the function of liver, and I thought, oh, I don't I fancy that. But I haven't had liver for a long time now, and I must do that. Um, there
Oh
was
yeah,
another
you could say
question.
the same for a rump steak though, when you know where the rump comes from. It could put you off, but to be honest,
Well,
rump
that's very true.
COVID. So.
Hopefully, there's a separate tube to keep all of that away. Tell us about your before we go. Tell us about your big friendly Viking YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm a filmmaker and an actor, so I've made. There's a few short films on there that I've made. I've got a feature-length film coming out. I'm hoping at the end of this year or late this year, called Finding Hecate, which is a film about Clapham Woods, which is a it's a I don't want to talk too much about it because I want it to be as vague as humanly possible. But the trailer is on my channel. You can see that, and it is one of the last. I think it is actually the last recorded appearance of Charles Walker, rest his
I
soul.
interviewed Charles Walker
I know you did, yeah,
only
yeah.
on audio, and I've got
I
it
heard it.
somewhere.
I heard
Oh,
it
you've
years
heard it. Oh,
ago when
right.
I was when I was first getting the idea together for this film. And he was very kind. I reached out to him and said, "Can I interview you for this film?" And he said, "Yeah, here's my address and here's my phone number." I was like, "Oh, well, he's all
Yeah.
right then."
Have you
Had
got
me
his
round his
book?
house. Oh, it's a great interview, and
Hmm.
it's really sad that he's not around to be able to see the film. But the film will be dedicated to his memory, and his family will get to see the film before it's released, so that they can basically give their blessing for it to be released. So you can see the trailer for that film on there. I've also started a series of videos called The Night Guard, where I'm telling spooky and unexplained creepy stories. I've only made one video of that which is a personal story of mine from when I was a child. That's on there where I'm going to start doing that quite regularly when I tell spooky stories on shift. I'm in my security outfit. Um, And I'm also going to start doing carnivore videos. I want to make one soon showing my progress so far, 5, 6 months into the diet, and then every month do a new one saying my progress and talking about new research on the carnivore diet and referring to, I'd love to do an interview with Ken Berry himself. Again, I'd recommend all your viewers check out Ken Berry MD. He's on YouTube. If you want to know any real expert information, real from a medical professional himself, watch Ken Berry. He knows exactly what he's talking about. Loads of people have followed his advice and they're just doing phenomenally. So that's my channel, Big Friendly Viking. If people could check out my videos and subscribe, that would be amazing. But that's not the reason I'm here. It was to talk to
No,
you.
no, no. I appreciate that, but it's always quite interesting. And for
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, Charles Walker experienced something very strange when walking in local woods here. I did interview him, and I got his book. He was a very lovely chap, and it's the sinister goings on. And what was interesting is only now thinking about, well, where we are today, and I wonder what was going on there
Well, the
now.
Friends of Acarte, there's some very interesting history there, and I'll invite you to the premiere of the film when it's out. It'll be at the Dome Cinema. They've said I
Oh,
can.
will it? Oh, well, do invite me. That'd be lovely.
I think a lot of people will be quite surprised by the film because the trailer doesn't do it justice. You'll see the trailer and think, oh, okay, this looks like this kind of film. You wait till you see the final film. But it is really, it was an honour to interview Charles Walker in that. It really was.
Fantastic. Well, there we go. Meanwhile, everyone will be dashing down to the local butchery to get some good old meat and give it a try. I thank you so much, Lewis, for telling us about that. It's been fascinating to hear that. I know that Sovereign Pete, who's been on the show, he's a meat-only diet and he just eats meat. So I've quizzed him about that as well. I'll be back with more monologues and wonderful guests who eat all sorts of interesting and curious things, but not insects. So nobody wants to eat any of that rubbish. Thank you so much again, Lewis. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Check out the Big Friendly Viking, and we look forward to your channel when you've got your meat-based diet progress going on. That would be fantastic. So there we are. That's it. Thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen. From Lewis and myself, take care, look after yourself, eat well, and bye-bye for now.